And my second research is about video game development, independent video game development. So I was very interested in the idea. When I started my research at first, I was very interested in the idea of sort of how video games are developed through open source procedures, and how does open source development in video games make games intrinsically different. Now, I was very convinced by the idea that sort of as games are developed through a more open source procedure, they would actually be better, or they would actually have more to say, or they would have a deeper content that commercial video game development just cannot provide to the players. Now, I don't know how many people here are into gaming, but the main problem in gaming industry right now is what they call the, excuse me, I had a big lunch. The big problem with the video game industry is right now what people are calling the AAA video games. AAA video games are basically games that have a high budget. It's like the Hollywood of with video games. High budget video games that basically just appeal to your sense of achieving something immediately. If you have, for instance, heard of World of Warcraft, which I had conducted the research prior to this with the players who are playing World of Warcraft. And in games like World of Warcraft or Facebook games, you know, Farmville, where you keep clicking on a cow 3 times a day so that it gives you more milk. What these games do is they actually sort of minimize the amount of satisfaction you get out of them and maximize the money that they will get out of you in return. So basically, this is called like a treadmill system. You know, you just keep running on it, but nothing ever really happens. Nothing that actually satisfies you ever happens. And the less the satisfaction this game gives you, the more you keep going back to it and try to get satisfaction out of it. So the interest basically here is like, okay, give you as little satisfaction as possible for the most amount of money that you can spare. And I was convinced at first that sort of the open source system would, by itself, by its very procedure, would be sort of against this kind of video game development that just sort of makes crappy games that just keeps you hooked for no reason other than getting 1 unit more milk out of your cow. It turned out that open source is not really the most important thing to give a decent content to video games. There are video game developers. There are very good games that are developed in open source, but there's a lot of independent video game development that is made in copyright, which are made by people who are sort of like very ethically concerned about the amount of satisfaction their games provide to the players. And I find that sort of when it comes to urban gentrification and both video games, introducing more technology or more sort of forms of association, human association that are facilitated by technology is not necessarily going to make the most important difference. That's why I sort of emphasize on the idea of responsibility. The people who are still creating things, whether if it's copyrighted or not, whether if it's sort of like individually lanced out or whether if it's collectively lanced out like Wikipedia or open source projects, either way, what is still important is basically responsibility. You cannot escape the importance of responsibility in the work you do, whether you're changing a neighborhood with the gallery you've opened, or whether you're providing video games to gamers who are sort of craving for achievement. As an artist or a designer, you have to be responsible. You can't just go hide behind saying, oh, it's open source, it's good, by the fact that it's open source. Oh, it uses technology, it's good. I find that attitude to be restricted. It cuts out a great deal of human experience that has already observed the sort of what artists and designers have observed. And people have been resisting to these sorts of things, you know, like manipulation by the system, demand, all that Foucault stuff. People have already been resisting these before artists and designers came along. And what I think artists and designers should do is go out, talk to these people, get some air in their lungs, and learn from them, basically. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.